Good evening. This is Stedman Fry, along with my co-host Amanda Goodman-Berry and Flex McGee, with Delta Workers Unite, the Working Class Podcast, your newest resource for news, updates, and information on the state of the union drive and how you can get involved. We'll bring you interviews and stories from workers just like you and us who want to share happenings as they see them. We'll also be debunking the falsehoods and misconceptions about the union and giving you the tools to do the same. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you will know when we post or go live. Thank you. Hello. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good. Go Bills.
Don't rub it in, man. Like I said, I'm your host, Stedman Fry, joined by my two co-hosts and special guests. So I'll pass it over to a co-host, AGB, to let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. I'm Amanda Goodman-Berry, a Minneapolis rapper, and I'm a little under the weather today, so if my voice go in and out, just know I'm doing the best I can. I'll pass it over to Flex.
What's good people? Flex McGee, ATL, man, Minneapolis, Buffalo, Newark, Memphis. I worked all over the system, man, and I'm here, man, the voice of the people, man, and I'm excited to be able to introduce and pass this over to my personal friend that I worked with for years, even though it's been like 20 years ago. And it's first time on the podcast with us. So I'm going to pass it off to my brother, Dan Mccurdy.
Thanks, Flex. Dan Mccurdy. I work Minneapolis ramp, and I've worked out there 26 years. I've worked in Minneapolis, Anchorage, Des Moines, West Palm Beach, and Fort Myers. And Minneapolis is great in the summertime, but days like this up here, rather be in some other places.
Thank you, Dan.
And thanks, Dan. And again, I'm Stedman Fry here in Detroit. 18 years, worked in Atlanta, worked in DCA and Detroit. And want to thank you all again for joining us. Episode 6. Delta workers show up big during winter weather. We deserve better. And I think what Dan just said kind of is a good segue into the topic. So we've had some weather these last couple weeks, really intense winter weather, especially today. I guess it's like a polar wind or polar vortex, but some snow and things around the system that have kind of hampered a bit of the operation. And we've had to step up in a lot of big ways to make up for the shortfalls. Who'd like to kind of take control to go from here? Amanda, Flex, Dan, to kind of give your perspectives on how you see things going so far with that.
Yeah, I'll start if you guys don't mind. Here in Minneapolis, I think the high was -6 today. This morning when we woke up, it was -13 with a wind chill of about -25. So those aren't fun conditions to work in. And I've got a little bit of a story from a few weeks ago. It was like 3 weeks ago. It was right before Christmas. It was on a Thursday, I remember. And we were severely short-staffed, and they were giving us flight after flight. You finish one flight, you have another one in the gate. Finish that flight, another one in the gate. And it literally, our pucks touched each other throughout the entire day to where you didn't get a lunch. So whenever we were finished, the next day I saw my manager, and I asked him, hey, will you look into this? Because you schedule us for 8.5 hours a day, but you only pay us for 8. Will you give me the extra 30 minutes of compensation? Said, I'll look into it. So he ran it up to the director, and nobody ever got back to me, but it was around Christmas. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give them plenty of time. So like 10 days later, I go back to him and ask, what's the verdict on that extra pay? And he said, yeah, it's not going to happen. So I was like, all right. And I walked away. But it feels really disrespectful whenever you do get worked for 8.5 with a company that we make extremely successful. And you can't even do things that union contracts do, which is guarantee a lunch or pay a lunch for it. To fast forward to yesterday, I didn't sign up for overtime today. It's my day off. But I got a text, hey, do you want to work an RDO for today? And I just said, no, thanks. And the reason that I said no, thanks is because I remember that. Like, I want to feel respected. Like, I want to feel valued. And I have a feeling if you're calling me on my day off for overtime, you're really short-staffed and it's really cold out there. So the least that you can do is staff the operation properly. And even if I did go in, it's going to be severely understaffed. So it's just, it's not fun. And I don't, I feel that we deserve to be respected 365 days a year for the value that we put into this company. So it's, with the union, they've got it written in their work rules. All of these benefits and these shows and signs of respect. And that's what I miss. I mean, I know Amanda and Flex, we go back to the Northwest days. We've all worked under an IAM contract. Stedman, were you Northwest as well?
Yeah, I started Northwest.
Okay, yeah.
It was, about 3 years before we merged. So,
okay, so we've all experienced the IAM contract, and it's not this big scary thing in unions. It's not the big scary thing that the company tries to portray. It's actually the exact opposite. You feel valued and respected whenever you do have the security of a union contract.
Right, and I think that's something that's important to kind of to tell people, who aren't familiar with the union or IAM specifically. That it's not something to be afraid of. And when you speak about the conditions, and we've had some cold weather today. I think it was as cold as like -6. And that's quite a bit for us here in Michigan, in Detroit. But, they don't even consider us, one of our gripes, they don't even consider us a cold weather station. So we have a hard time with, some of our issues even being addressed in that regard. But, to have that kind of protection, to have a voice, to know that, you're not just standing up against this machine by yourself, but you have an organization, a union, your coworkers behind you who are there to support you and who, you're all working together for each other's best interests, is something really important. Amanda, I know you were really voicing your concern about making it known about the TDYs and how, employees had to go around the system over these last couple of weeks to help out. Could you give some information and kind of expand on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, once again, excuse my voice. I'm trying to speak at a level which I don't strain, but I think that this is a sad part and this is a happy part. The sad part is that the workers were so excited to say that, hey, I'm going to go to Nashville, or I'm going to go to Atlanta, or I'm going to go here because I'm going on a TDY to help the company out so that we can de-ice these planes. The happy part of that was seeing the joy that they were so proud of, that they was able to go and help the company out. Now, the sad part of this is that to me was the companies outsource a lot of these companies. They took the jobs away from the Delta workers. And what frustrated me, the more you took it from the Delta workers to turn around and have to ask the workers to go and help de-ice the very planes that you took the job from. So me being who I am, I'm never going to discourage the workers because I'm all about the workers. And I want the workers to be happy to come to work. But it was disheartening to know that Delta, like Dan said, this was so disrespectful. You disrespected the people who knew the job, is outsourced it, and then called upon the very people to go back and pick it back up again and to help you. So that was very disheartening to me. And I think the company needs to take a better look at how they're treating the workers, because you don't get to just take our jobs and then tell us we need your help to go back and do the job you've taken away from us. So Flex or anyone have something to say on that? And I just found that it was just very disheartening for me, because the joy that was on the workers' face when I was talking to them, I had to smile with them because they really didn't understand what Delta had really done. So, and that's important, getting this out here, that they understand that your job you're going to do in another station was your job. And now it is someone else's job and to bring it home. But Delta needs you to go back and do your very job that was yours in the beginning. So I'll pass it off to Flex, back to Dan, you, Statman, whomever. But that was degrading to me.
Yeah, I want to kind of, because it links back to our previous episode when we talked about pay and compensation and comparing it to the other unionized airlines, how our pay and profit is so different. And I think this kind of is another dimension to that, because if they can pay out to outsource labor, that was us. You know, it was Delta employees who were doing this work. And then you can essentially, piecemeal add people when you need them, to schedule them when it's necessary. That allows you to save money in a way that staffing, that work group full time doesn't. And so we need to understand that, when you look at the bottom line of all this stuff, right? When we see the profit and we see the revenue compared to from last episode, if you look at, compared to American Airlines, compared to United, compared to Southwest, which is significantly smaller than we are, and you look at those figures and you wonder how Delta can have a $4 billion profit and American has a $800 million profit, and they have the same revenue. What is the difference? The difference is through their contract and their negotiations, they have to fund more things that benefit their employees or that constrain their finances in a way that Delta doesn't. We need to be mindful of that and how that impacts us. Is it beneficial for any of us as employees? Is our quality of life better? Can any of us speak to that, or anybody watching? Can you speak to if you know anybody who works for a different airline? Is your quality of life so much better than theirs as a result of Delta being able to say they have $4 billion in profit relative to American Airlines, or more than that relative to United? I'll pass it to Flex.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Fry. I just want to kind of jump in and we really have to, we as employees have undervalued our worth at Delta Airlines at sometimes. Anytime they talk about the Delta difference, man, they're not talking about the technology alone. They're talking about the services provided, and those services are provided by the employees, upstairs, downstairs, whether you're a mechanic, whether you're a pilot, whether you're a flight attendant. Their experience is really built on how we treat them. And we don't always value that properly. I know in Atlanta, we don't have de-icing like we used to. And I'm gonna throw a number out there. I can't confirm it, but we lost like 250 de-icing jobs. We don't have de-icers like we used to. That work is done by Unified. So when people start coming in here to do Atlanta work, so if you guys all come down here, your station is losing people to come help ours because ours never had enough people to do our work in the first place. And that's an issue. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that people here aren't willing to work. It's because they're willing to cut profit, or I should say that they're willing to cut employee expense for profit. And that is one of the biggest things that we're fighting. We're not fighting, like, they try to make this as seem like it's an anti-union versus union thing. And that's clearly not the case at all. All of us want the same thing. It's just how they pitch it to the people that changes how we view it. It's the angle that you're looking at. You know what I'm saying? The more work there is in Atlanta, the more money that a person in Atlanta can make. The more full-time lines there'll be, the more overtime lines there'll be, or not lines, but more overtime there'll be, the more people can work. If they're giving you 20 and 25-hour lines, but your overtime in a day, because you work 5 hours, don't kick into your 10th hour, you losing 2 hours of overtime every day. Yeah, you're willing to stay and work, but they don't have to pay you the way they have to pay you. So some of the things that we really miss out on when they start talking about profit is record profits year after year is lost wages somewhere. And these are the things that we are here fighting and combating against every day. And I'll kind of land that plane there and let somebody else jump in so they can speak on it as well. But pulling people from other cities to help cities where we got people willing to work, but it's because you don't want to pay them, or because you have contracted certain jobs out. Like I know back in the day, at one point in the New York City area, they were contracting people out just to dump like local bags on the belt. That's our work. That's somebody's job. So when you can't get a full-time line on day shift or night shift or period, but they got all of these other people helping us do our work, or they tell you, well, or your OSM says, well, if y'all was union, I couldn't help you. You can't help everything that needs to happen in your area. It's only 2 or maybe 3 OSMs, but you need 7 people. And they're not coming outside to help you. They're sending you to help you. And these are some of the things we really need to start looking at and evaluating and trying to understand, is this really what we want?
When I'd like to add to that, because you're spot on. Like the company, they prove. I mean, when they outsource jobs, they're doing it because they want cheaper labor. That's the reason why you outsource. It's not because the outsource company is going to do a better job. It's not because they're more available, anything like that. They want cheaper labor, but they prove that we do provide tremendous value to this company, because when that fails and they can't cover it with those workers, that's whenever they call us from around the system. Hey, come down to whatever city and help us de-ice and do these jobs. You shouldn't piecemeal it and have us do it whenever it's convenient for Delta. This needs to be a two-way street and mutually respectful. That these are our jobs. You know, we have lives too, and we need to make ends meet. So respect us 100% of the time, and show us that value by securing our job and not running us all over the system. Because when you do that as well, if you pull people from Minneapolis, it now makes Minneapolis short. So we're hurting our own workers right here in our home stations.
So I have a question for Flex and Dan. The fact that you both have done TDYs and you've gone to different stations, but it was under Northwest at that time. Am I correct? When you was doing the different stations and TDYs, what made the difference in what they're doing now and how it was back then with the TDY? Because I never did a TDY. But you guys, I'm sure it was because there was a lot of pluses to it versus a lot of negative to it. So what would you say to the people who are going out there that is really bailing the company out? Because that's what is happening here. They're bailing the company out in these different stations and taking their experience of de-icing to make sure our passengers are safe, to make sure Delta planes are flying. It is a big picture. What would you say to those people who are doing the TDYs and what they should be looking out for?
Well, Delta does it like they piecemeal it. It's here and there. They'll do it a couple days here, a couple days there. Whenever I did mine, it was for peak season in stations. So it was almost like you were a seasonal employee in these. We had excess people. If they didn't have excess people here in Minneapolis, they wouldn't let you go. But I went on mine for 3 months and 6 months in each of them. So it was more like I was going in as a seasonal employee, helping the operation and then going back. So they only allowed it from the stations that could afford to allow it. And it was for longer periods of time, not just a day or two here when the operation is failing there. It was a needs of service, and it filled it, and it made everybody happy. Like that, everybody, if you did the 3 month or 6 month, I got to go to warm weather stations and enjoy a long period of time. And it's not like they would only use me a couple days here and there. I was there every single day. And then I would come back to my home station that was promised to me.
And if I could kind of piggyback off of what he was saying, it was really us protecting our jobs. Like us having to call for people from other stations that weren't necessarily overstaffed, but they could let a few people go. It showed that you needed more people on our caliber of work ethic and knowledge to be in those stations to help with them. Like right now, if I could just give a huge shout out to everybody that's down, brothers and sisters down in Miami right now. Miami is struggling as a newly open station to keep people and to have people with experience there. And I know there's so many people from across the system that are there right now trying to explain to them how this isn't how this works. You can't just open up a city and then bring in a bunch of people off the street and tell them, you got to go out here and do this. That's not how it works. And that's what's happening in Miami currently, because I'm connected with some of the people down there, and they're telling me about these things. Like us having union contract protects our work. It makes sure that things are done the same across the board. I guess nothing to get your badge for another city. it's like, but when you go to another city and it feels like it, what's up, Drew? And it feels like you working for a completely different company, that's a problem. So when you go somewhere that Unify might have ran or previously DGS or something, these guys don't work the same. They don't have the same work, the code. They've probably been taught the same, but they've also been threatened enough to where they're saying, hey man, safety matters, but this is how we do things. And that's a problem everywhere. Safety always has to come first. Like, do exactly what you've been trained to do. But that's like that would be my biggest thing with like the TDYs and stuff that I've done, or like moving around and stuff in the past, man. It was like I could come in and fit right in as an employee because everything was the same. Like in the Delta system, in my opinion, things are done the same. In Atlanta, just speaking of Atlanta, the difference between T concourse, how they do things, is different from A concourse, is different from B concourse, is different from C concourse. And they'll tell you it's all the same, but the reality is, it's how it's ran, it's not. And that's a problem for workers. Workers need to understand what's expected of them. And that's part of our issue as well. Expectations are different depending on who you're talking
to. And I kind of want to, Amanda, I've done one TDY in my career, but I put in for some. And I kind of think the perspective, if I can try to hit something that you guys kind of talked around, but I kind of want to hit head on, is what I feel like you guys were saying without directly saying is that how TDYs are being used now is to staff critical work groups and critical positions, whereas in the past, you know, the inauguration was today. So you may send more people to DCA and Dulles because you're expecting more flights, or wherever you have the Super Bowl, you may send some TDYs because you're expecting an increase of flights. In those situations, in peak season, so if they're, you know, LA's having the Olympics in 2028, so you may send more people to work in LA because you're expecting an increase in flights, something where it's out of the norm. But here, where you're having, you know, people, and I've talked to people about this, they say, oh, you know, Atlanta, wow, it doesn't really, Atlanta's warm. Every year that I lived in Atlanta, it snowed and it was cold. And so to me, even if it's cold and snowing now, this is an expectation that by now the state and the city and the airport should be used to. This is a normal occurrence. Every winter, you're going to get a couple cold days at least. So this is not new. You should need to bring in people to support a standard operating procedure, right? That would be no different than if you had to bring in people to Detroit or Minneapolis to shovel snow. That doesn't make sense. Now, if it was some grand amount of snow or cold over what's normal, that's different. But for standard operating procedure, and so what we see now, due to cost-cutting measures, right, increasing profit, because like I always try to tell people, you can only fly so many times in 24 hours. There's only so many destinations. There's only so many airports. There's only so many lines that you can go to. There's only so many ways you can increase profit. So if we turn this job, which was a career, and for some of us still is a career, into a fast food place, or like a McDonald's or a Burger King or Walmart or something that's quick, and you do it for a couple years and you stop, you can increase profit because nobody's going to retire. You don't have to give anybody benefits long term. You don't have to give anybody pay long term, and you can always cycle people over. And the CEO and the VPs and the board can just reap all the profits, right? And Kip says,
yeah,
maybe it'll never snow in Atlanta again.
One of the huge things too, like one of the big differences between the union and here, is that they outsource the de-icing in Atlanta. Then they're using us basically as scabs to go in there.
Scabs.
To go in and do it because we do a better job and they need us. So they're saying if we could pay you less, which they can do some of the time by hiring out the contractors, they'll do it. But we're going to still, sometimes we need you to go in there and act as replacements to make that
our
station work.
scabs.
Yeah, to go in in these cities. So respect us. Don't outsource our work if we're doing a good job. If the other company can't handle it, it tells us you need our work. Don't go cheap on us.
I appreciate you saying that, Dan, because I kind of felt the same way. I didn't really want to offend anybody by calling them scabs or calling us scabs, because I don't want people to feel like they're scabs because they take a TDY. But like, I grew up north too, as you all know. And when you go in and you replace union workers, that's kind of what that has that feeling of, is being a scab. You know what I'm saying? And somebody who's replacing somebody who they don't really want to pay. You know what I'm saying? And it's no, I don't want our coworkers who take TDYs to feel that way. But I just do want people to understand that our work is that valuable that anytime they send us in to help pick up where the people who they have paid to replace us are doing the job correctly or effectively, that we're not just, it's them. They're the people they hire. They have scab companies who come in, but they want us to come in and lift the scab company up, and that's the issue. You know what I'm saying? You taking a TDY somewhere to go help out or to go somewhere because it's warm or whatever it is during peak season, all of the things we discussed, that's cool. But like at the point that we know that every year, if it snows in Atlanta, we're going to have to send somebody because they got Unified down there doing it. They gave all their buddies this contract. You know what I'm saying? So we got to come save their buddies. Like, we have to look at that as what are we really doing? We're not helping ourselves. We need to get ourselves in a situation and put ourselves in position to be able to protect our work from scabs at the end of the day, or people that I don't want to be disrespectful, but just protect our work from anybody that's trying to take it away from us. Our work is
it's the company trying to take it away. It's the company that's replacing it. And they, right after the merger, they tried to do something similar here in Minneapolis. In our bag room, we were short one day, so they took 3 DGS workers and they put them in the bag room and had them work for the day. So I went to our director and I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, you're showing us to our face that if you could replace us, you would do it. Like, and you know that you can't do it all the time. So you're just going to do it on days here and there. And he said, I'm sorry, it will never happen again. And it hasn't happened since, because it is a blatant show of disrespect whenever you bring in lower paid workers to replace whenever you can, because you can get by, whatever else. That's not acceptable to us. If we either want the work, or go ahead and take care of yourself if you think you can do it for cheaper. But the truth is, they can't. They need us, and we need to recognize the value that we put into this company and have it respected in a union contract.
And I think what you guys were saying is important. Well, let's try this out. Let's try this out. Forgive me for my.
I want to give Dan's rant some respect because I love what you said, bro. I want to respect his rant. Yeah, respect his rant.
I mean, that's the thing. That's what I like about this group, the 4 of us. Like, we've lived on both sides of it. We understand that it is better with a union contract, and we even had the union contract when we were going through tough times, and these airlines weren't profitable, so we had to use the union to fight the company off because they were trying to do concessions. Delta was going through the hard times at that exact same period, but they didn't have a contract. Delta went in there and they just took concessions day one. And then you fast forward to a couple of years later, and both Northwest and Delta went into bankruptcy on the exact same day. So we're not, our labor isn't causing this company to go under. We're a tremendous value to this company. And we have to recognize our worth. I think that our fellow coworkers sometimes don't respect themselves enough. Like, they look at the pilots, go, oh, well, they're a pilot. Well, listen, on these days, whenever it's brutally cold and whenever you go do that TDY in these stations, you're providing tremendous value to this company to keep those planes flying. And I just ask you to recognize it.
Well, and if I could just jump in real quick, I just want to say one thing to Fry, not to Fry, but Fry, if you can, let me just, hey, whoever is listening to somebody, clip what he just said so we can put that out there. Like, that's what we really fighting about. That what Dan just was saying is what our entire struggle is about, man. Valuing our work. Make sure somebody go out there and clip that, man, and put that out there. I need to see that this week. Yeah, thank you, Dan.
I appreciate that, Flex. I appreciate that.
I'll try to get to it. But what I want to say, Flex, I know when you were saying scab, you wanted to try to clean it up. And I think what the ultimate point you were trying to make is, if Delta needs workers, you want them to have to hire Delta workers.
Yes.
Right? Not DGS.
Yes.
So not to say that they're scabs, but if you want to work on Delta aircraft, be a Delta employee.
Yes.
Get the benefits that we get the pay that we get. get the pay scale that we get the protection that we get. We get a union and you become a member of the Delta family like we are, right? So it's not, because I think a lot of times that can be misconstrued. We're not trying to demonize people who want to do a job. Everybody needs to do a job. What we're saying here is we're advocating for a union so that when you do your job, when you work in the de-ice a flight or load a bag, or like Dan said in Minneapolis in the bag room, when they add 3 people to a pier, you're adding 3 Delta workers. You're not adding 3 contractors who don't have protection, who may be browbeaten or intimidated because they don't really have say-so and they need this $16 an hour job or $15 an hour job. We got somebody there who's making scale like we are, who has a voice, who has a union, and has protection. That's what we want. We want what we want for everybody who works for Delta Airlines on Delta aircraft. And to piggyback on Dan, as far as
clip that too. For cleaning that up, clip that too.
And well, as far
people
as
should know that it's the company choosing to use employees as scabs. If one employee doesn't do it, another employee is going to go to whatever station it is. But these aren't openings that should even be there, because these should be permanent Delta workers in these stations. So it's the company that's using it in this way. It's not the individual employees, because if one employee passes it up, the other one goes. It's the company that's choosing to use our value in this way to fill in these holes.
Thanks.
And it's important to and so I'm going to try to make sure I get this downloaded and clipped, because that's something we need to do. Make sure downloaded and clipped. Some.
Get Mandolin. She's trying to talk too. You know her voice bad. She can't jump in.
Go for it. Sorry. Go for it. You're muted. Just talk. I'll be quiet.
I'm sorry. Mute me again. I can't talk. Okay. So what I was trying to say, Dan and Flex took it all away from me. But I wanted to say just what you were saying, and we're going to get off the scab part, because that's not what we're calling our coworkers, by no means necessary. We're just using an example of what it looked like before. But you should be real proud of yourself, because if the company got to bring you in full force, that means Delta workers are the best. That means Delta workers know what they're doing. That means Delta workers can stand the test of time. And if you are out there doing a TDY, Delta chose you because they knew you could get it done. So give yourself a hands up and don't worry about the negative part of Delta, because Delta couldn't find anyone else to do what Delta workers can do. We are the best in the airline industry. So if you're working on a TDY, give yourself a thumbs up every day you walk out there, because Delta chose you because they knew you could get it done. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandolin.
And going forward, the way that it should be done is that we negotiate a contract, and it's a mutually agreed upon contract. Whatever it is, the company says whatever they want, we say whatever we want, and we come to an agreement. But the way that it is right now, it's all Delta. They do it the way that they want, and if we don't like it, then we quit. But that's where they pick and choose to use workers in this way. It's them just like scabbing our workforce. It's not us that's choosing to do it that way. So I think that's an important clarification. I mean, seriously, like with pay, benefits, work rules, all that stuff, I would accept it a lot more if I could just have a seat at the table and negotiate it, because we deserve that. Like, we deserve to have a seat if we're going to turn these huge profits that allow our CEO to make almost $100,000 a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's just, we have value. We just have to recognize it.
And I think, let me unmute you, Amanda. And Flex.
If I could just jump in real quick. No, my bad. I just want to say, hey, man, for all the people that's listening to this in the chat, man, yo, give us a thumbs up in the comments if you need to see Dan Mccurdy on here more, man, because we need a little more Dan Mccurdy energy on this podcast as well. Make sure that y'all like the podcast, you subscribe, you share, you click the notification bell. Hey, Dan, no, Dan, you don't got to clap. We clapping for you, Dan, because we need you, bro. Like, on the real.
We need all of us. Believe me, I just talk a lot. I just talk too much. But yeah, we need all of us, brother.
Yeah, thank you. As y'all see, y'all need to clip everything Dan said. I should see this on social media all week, man, because he came with that fire today, man, and I appreciate it.
Right.
I appreciate it.
You know what, though? Honestly, it's easy. When you're speaking the truth, it's pretty easy.
Facts.
And
Sorry about that, Fry.
Oh no, it's all good. But I mean, it's been really it's been reinforced. But we need to recognize our job is important. If anything, we've seen over the last 5-6 years post COVID is that we're not as easily replaceable as they've tried to tell us all this time. They've made it seem like anybody can come off the street and do this job. Nobody is dumb enough, or whatever you want to call it, to stand out in negative degree weather and stand outside with plastic sticks in their hand and walk planes in and out and throw bags. I mean, nobody's doing that. You know what I'm saying? But we've been here. I'm on the lower end of 20, not 20 yet. I'm at 18, but you are 20 plus, right? You've made a career out of it. So, I respect you three. You guys are a beacon for me to look up to in this fight, unionizing, organizing. What I strive to do in my work every day. I look up to the three of you, how I interact, how I do my job the right way, and so I appreciate you kind of taking me under your wing to allow me to do this show with you all. And I just want to say you three are an inspiration to me. But like Drew was saying in the comments, our job is a trade. People don't consider it that way. But when you're in the bin with the new hire and they're loading the flight and the bags don't look good, right? And you get up there and you switch places and you're doing it one-handed, not even thinking about it. And they're asking you, how do you do this? Or that's the skill. That's a skill trade, because you cannot just come in here off the street and do what we do every day. There's a tolerance we have to the elements. There's a tolerance we have to tight spaces. There's a tolerance we have to all aspects of this job, even when it comes to dealing with the management. And we need to be respected and compensated. Like I said, the title of the show, Delta workers show up big during winter weather. We deserve better. And that could just be Delta workers show up big every day. We deserve better. You don't get to be the most profitable airline if you don't have workers who are dedicated, who have made a career out of this, show up every day. So we deserve better. This is for us. I'll toot my own horn. Since you clapped, I'll clap. But we deserve this. Like Dan said,
you're spot on. It isn't. Think about it. Like, the company's not even going to argue that we're unskilled labor. We're the last one that sees that aircraft before it takes off for departure on the ground, and also de-icing. We de-ice that thing, and then we leave it. It's left up to ourselves to inspect it to make sure that it's airworthy. Like, you don't want just anybody that's coming into a job and doesn't care whatever else. Listen, we're pretty invested in this thing, and we've kept this airline safe, and that is a testament as to who we are and how much we actually care about this airline. We want to see it succeed, and we also want to be brought along for the ride.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't know if there's anything else. We're at the 40-minute mark. I unmuted everybody. So, or Dan's muted himself.
Close us out, bro.
Well, because it is Dr. King's Day, I did want to read an excerpt from a speech he gave to the sanitation workers in Memphis when they were going through their strike to form their union in 1968, about 2 months before he was assassinated. Even Delta, people tend to take Dr. King and they want to show one aspect of who he was as a person, but they tend not to show him as a labor advocate, right, for the rights of laborers. And so I think in the spirit of the day and in the spirit of our cause of unionizing, I think this would just be a nice way to close. It's about 5 paragraphs. It won't be very long. It won't be very long, but I just thought it would be nice to close out in the spirit of the day and the spirit of our movement. So here we go. The speech is from March 18th, 1968, entitled "All Labor Has Dignity." You are doing many things here in this struggle. You are demanding that this city will respect the dignity of labor. So often we overlook the work and the significance of those who are not in professional jobs. Yeah, of those who are not in the so-called big jobs. But let me say to you tonight that whenever you are engaged in work that serves humanity and is for the building of humanity, it has dignity and it has worth. One day our society must come to see this. One day our society will come to respect the sanitation worker if it is to survive. For the person who picks up our garbage, in the final analysis, is as significant as the physician. For if he doesn't do his job, diseases are rampant. All labor has dignity. But you are reminding the nation that it is a crime for people to live in this rich nation and receive starvation wages. And I need not remind you that this is our plight as a people all over America. Now, the problem is not only unemployment. Do you know that most of the poor in our country are working every day, and they are making wages so low that they cannot begin to function in the mainstream of economic life in our nation? These are the facts which must be seen, and it is criminal to have people working on a full-time basis and a full-time job getting part-time income. You are here tonight to demand that Memphis will do something about the conditions that our brothers face as they work day in and day out for well-being of the total community. You are here to demand that Memphis will see the poor. Now, let me say a word for those of you who are on strike. You have been out now for a number of days, but do not despair. Nothing worthwhile is gained without sacrifice. The thing for you to do is stay together and say to everybody in this community that you are going to stick it out until the end, until every demand is met, and that you are going to say, we ain't going to let nobody turn us around. Let it be known everywhere that along with wages and all other securities that you are struggling for, you are also struggling for the right to organize and be recognized. We can all get more together than we can apart. We can all get more organized together than we can apart. And this is the way we gain power. Power is the ability to achieve purpose. Power is the ability to affect change. And we need power. What is power? Walter Reuther said once that, quote, power is the ability of a labor union like UAW to make the most powerful corporation in the world, General Motors, say yes when it wants to say no, end quote. That's power. And I want you to stick it out so that you'll be able to make Mayor Loeb and others say yes when they want to say no. And so I want to close with that. I think a lot of those words fit, you know, some of the specifics of Memphis and that, but you think about what was said there. You gain more through organization. You gain power. Power, like Walter Reuther said, makes a company like General Motors say yes when they want to say no. Power, organization can make a company like Delta Airlines say yes when they want to say no. They can hire Delta workers when they want to hire contract employees, right? They can get new equipment when they don't want to. They can get more 40-hour lines. They can increase wages and benefits when they don't want to, when we have the power of a union behind us. And so I thought that would be fitting, you know, to see that side of Dr. King on this day in the spirit of union, organizing, and labor, that we will be able to enjoy that moment. So I appreciate you all. I'll give a round of applause to that speech. I didn't write it, but Sister Amanda, she recommended a documentary called it's in the description. I posted the full speech in the description, and it's going to be in the link in the description if anybody's interested in reading it. And the documentary is in the description. It's called At the River I Stand. It is a documentary about 50 minutes long about the union organizing effort in Memphis, preceding Dr. King's assassination. I think it'd be a great watch for everybody who's in the union organizing struggle to see just how vicious people can be when you are advocating for yourself through the dignity of your labor. So I'll give the applause to Dr. I'll open everybody's mic. So let's see. So thanks for tuning. Let's see. Maybe I'll move. Yeah. Oh, Flex, go ahead, Flex.
Hey, I just want to say, hey, we've been doing this podcast for a little over a month now, man, and I told them from the first week, every podcast would get better. I just want to say that I'm honored to literally be in here and stand in power with my brother Stedman, my brother Dan, and my big sister Amanda, and be able to be a part of this. And our power is understanding our purpose and how we effectively create change in our situations, man. And I just want to sign out for myself. And if you guys got something to say, you can. But this is what the Working People's podcast is about. Right, what you've seen here today, man. It's just an honor to be here with y'all, man. I know y'all, I work with everybody on this podcast here today. I've known you all for years. And I just want to tell you, man, it's a privilege to be here with you, man. I'm honored to be able to sit here amongst my friends and family and be able to affect change with our power. And y'all need to clip that shit that Fry said too, because Fry was killing it at the end. Clip that too.
Hey, Flex, I'll just close out by saying I appreciate you guys inviting me to this podcast. This was amazing today. This is the Working Class podcast, and it's awesome to sit here with my friends and discuss the best way forward. So let's continue doing this. I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe that we could get this to an election. We can get this to an election. We're going to get this to an election. So if there's anybody out there that is thinking about signing the card, do it today. Go on Facebook, Delta Workers Unite, and there will be a link up there. Request a card and make sure you get it sent in. We're going to do this. And thank you very much for allowing me to be on your podcast. I appreciate it.
All links are in the description. So request a card. All that stuff is in the description. Yep. Go on, Amanda. Oh, let me unmute you. Sorry.
Did you hear me?
Again, sorry.
I said I'm just gonna say it myself. Power to the goats, because it's the real goats on this podcast tonight.
Oh yeah.
I'm
just a kid. I'm trying to learn from y'all.
Power to the goats. Okay. Thank you.
So I'll close this out. Let's see. So thanks for tuning in with us. If you have questions that were not answered, or maybe a specific topic that you'd like to have addressed, leave us a comment and we'll get back to you. You could also leave an email. I've got the email link on there, links to the Instagram, the Twitter, the Facebook group, the Facebook page, links to, and that's on the YouTube, and it'll be in the description. Also, all available links to information and materials are posted in the description. Remember, this podcast is powered by working people just like you in solidarity. Peace.
Peace.